Bruce Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Today we've got Beating the Spread, March Madness special. We're going to look at all 8 games coming up on Thursday and Friday. We're going to give you the best bets, best picks you can make. And we're going to start off in the East region with the St. Peter's Peacocks against the Purdue Boilermakers. Who would have thought St. Peter's would be here? Most people thought it would be the Kentucky Wildcats. St. Peter's is a great defensive basketball team, especially in the low post. Purdue is a team with Jaden Ivey. They got the big man underneath. Ivey is, for my money, is one of the top 3-point guards in college basketball, if not number one. And when we look at this game, the thing that concerns me with Purdue, as always, is the fact that Purdue, since 1980, has always had something go wrong in a tournament, no matter how good they were. Now, St. Peter's is a team that relies on defense. This is not a team that got here just because they got hot from three-point range. 12.5 points is a huge spread in this game. I'm going to take the St. Peter's Peacocks. I'm going to take the 12.5 points, and I would really consider betting them straight up to win this game, as crazy as that sounds. All right, guys, next up, we're going to go on to a matchup that I think has a line that is way off, because right now, North Carolina is getting, I think it's 2 points now, because it was 2.5 when I wrote this. I just looked at it a second ago, and it already dropped to 2. I think this is recency bias. I think it's also a blue blood program in North Carolina that's getting too much credit. They have not been a consistent team all year, so maybe they have found what they needed to get to this point, and maybe they're going to make a run. But the UCLA Bruins, to me, with Mick Cronin, you got a lot of returning guys from a Final Four team. They're very experienced. The 2 or 2.5 points here, either way, is way too low. I think UCLA wins this game, and I think they win it by more than 5 points. So I'm going to go with the Bruins here to advance. That brings us to the West region. The West region, the Arkansas Razorbacks against the Gonzaga's Bull. Gonzaga here is a team that their first round game, the Zags didn't look that good. Against Georgia State, they struggled for a little over a half before pulling away. Then they played Memphis. They struggled, were down 12 points, I think at the half, 10 or 12 points. Came back, won the game. The difference here to me is this. Memphis, I think, is a lot better, a lot more talented team than Arkansas. And Arkansas is the higher seed. But Memphis, to me, has a top 20 basketball team. And I think they cause a lot more troubles athletically for Gonzaga than what Arkansas will. Arkansas is not a great shooting team. They basically win on the defensive end. Gonzaga can play defense. I think that this game, the point spread is anywhere from what I've seen from 8, 8.5, or 9. We're just going to count it in a 9 here to go with the top number. But if I'm betting this game, I'm taking Gonzaga. I'm giving it 9 points. I think Gonzaga will win this game by double digits. I think that Arkansas is a great matchup for Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga blows them off the court, and then everybody's going to be wanting to coronate them as the champions already. I don't know that that's the way it's going to go. I actually have a pick to win it all a little bit different than Gonzaga, which you can hear tonight if you're watching this on on Wednesday on our March Madness Sweet 16 betting preview and special. Me, Steve Risley, Dan Kornhauser, all going to give you the picks. Of course, Riz played on the 1981 National Championship team, so you can check us out at 8 o'clock live tonight for that. Next up, the other West Region game is Duke against Texas Tech. Duke is the higher seed. They're at number 2. Texas Tech is the number 3. And Texas Tech is actually favored by a point to a point and a half in most places. And I think a lot of that has to do with the ACC was not considered a very good conference this year. And Texas Tech, I think, was in the Big 12, which I think may have been the best conference in basketball. Texas Tech plays defense really well. Duke defensively struggled some. They've scored a lot of points, but they struggled to beat Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State is anywhere near a great team. And when you're struggling to beat Michigan State, I think there could be some issues. I like the Red Raiders. I'm going to go ahead and give up the 1.5 points here. I'll even go up to 2 points before I lay off of this game, because I think there's a really good chance Texas Tech gets the win here. I think this point spread, I think the fact that Coach K is there and it's Duke has this at a point, point and a half, where I think if this was any other team with the exact same roster and a different coach, you're probably looking at a 5 or 6 point favorite. And Duke has a lot of talent, don't get me wrong, but it's young talent who hasn't really been here before. Texas Tech's been here before over the last few years. I look for the Red Raiders to take this and cover that spread. In the South region, we've got Michigan and Villanova. Once again, a little recency bias, I think, because Michigan looked great in their first two games. The only problem is when you look back before that, I mean, it had been over a month since they'd won back-to-back games. You get the big man underneath Dickerson. He's a great player. Hunter Dickinson is a stud. But Villanova has Gillespie. Both these teams will kind of slow it down. I think Villanova shoots free throws really well. And this point spread here right now sits at 4.5. We are using Caesar Sportsbook, which you'll be able to find a link for the description down below to be able to go check out the best sports book out there at Caesar Sportsbook. Also, we'll have a link below to give you a list of the top 5 places that pay out the quickest. Because you win, you want to get your money right away. And we will give you the top 5 payouts also in the link in the description below in this video. And when I look at it, I think Gillespie, the free throw shooting, Villanova's a tough team. I mean, just straight out, they're tough. They're well coached. Jay Wright. They've been to a couple national championship games, of course, in the last 5 or 6 years. This team's going to be tough to beat. Now, the point spread is what I worry about here at 4.5, but I think the difference is I think you see Villanova go into the last minute up 2 or 3 points. Michigan's going to be forced to foul. Villanova is maybe the best free throw shooting team in the country. I mean, when you're forced to foul their worst free throw shooter and he shoots 74 or 75%, you know you've got issues. So I think this is a game where I'm going to take Villanova. I'm going to give the 4.5 points, and I'm going to expect in that last minute to probably hit 5 or 6 free throws. Make a defensive stop here or there. You covered at 5 points. So that's where we're going there. And the other in Houston, or we've got Houston and Arizona in the other South region game. And this is a game that I find the most interesting out of all of them. The Houston Cougars came into the year. A lot of people thought they were a national title contender, but they lost a couple players, a couple big-time players off the roster early in the season. They haven't let it phase them. They did have a little bit of some hiccups about 3-4 weeks ago, but since then they've been fine. Head coach Kelvin Sampson has done an outstanding job with this Houston Cougar program. They were in the Final Four a couple years ago. They could go to the Final Four again this year. Arizona, you got the best point guard in the country. They've scored at least 81 points, and I believe it was 8 of their last 12 games. So they're putting points up at a consistent basis. The Houston Cougars have been consistent on offense also. They've scored 68 points or more in their last 11, I think last 11 out of their last previous 12 games. And remember, this Cougars team is really well coached. I think Kelvin Sampson gets this done here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the 2 points, and I'm going to roll with Kelvin Sampson here. The game worries me because I think it's a toss-up, and I think Arizona is one of the most talented teams in the country. But I think Houston is also, and I think they get sold short a lot of times because of the conference they come out of. All right, let's go to the Midwestern region to wrap this up. And we've got Providence against Kansas. Right now, Providence is +7 against Kansas. I actually saw a couple other lines today that were +8. Ed Cooley, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in the country. This Providence team over the last few years has gotten better and better each year. Kansas is a team that plays in maybe the best conference. They looked good the first 2 games. So did Providence. I saw a lot of people had Providence losing in the first round, which did not happen. And then a lot of people picked up against them in the second round. A lot of people are going to pick against them. And FanDuel, the spread just went to 8 points. And when I look at that, this is going to be a low-scoring game. And the over-under right now is 141.5. So the thing that I would hit the most here is the under. I would go under to 141.5. I think you're going to get like a 65-63 game. So, of course, when I give you what I think the score will be, and it's 65-63, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm also going to take Providence at the 7 or 8 points. At 8 points, I'm all over this. I think Providence could win this game. And I'm actually thinking about doing a 2-team parlay just for the hell of it, of Providence and St. Peter's. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm crazy. Next up, the other Midwest region game, and the last game we're going to discuss today, Iowa State, +2.5 against Miami. Iowa State's a program that only won 2 games just last year. And when you look at that, you wonder how something like this happens. But this is great coaching. They've done a great job getting this program straightened back out. And when I look at this game, I think the difference is this. I think Iowa State was helped by playing in the second round an overseeded Wisconsin team. I don't think the Badgers were that good. I don't think the Big Ten was that good this year. And these teams are very similar, but I think the one glaring thing that stands out to me is that the Hurricanes are much more efficient offensively than Iowa State is. We've seen Iowa State against Wisconsin kind of bog Wisconsin's offense down. I think Miami's offense is much better than Wisconsin's. So when I look at that, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to roll with Miami to cover the 2.5 points. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. All right, guys, we will be back to do an Elite Eight prediction show, which I will probably do Saturday morning on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. So make sure you check that out. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Remember tonight at 8 o'clock, live on the Grueling Truth Sports Network, it'll be former 1981 national champion Steve Risley, Dan Kornhauser, and myself to break down all 8 games coming up over the next 2 days. We'll all give you our picks straight up, our picks against the spread. So make sure you check that out. Also, click on the link in the description to Caesars Sportsbook, which is our highly recommended sportsbook for this tournament. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. You can follow me on Twitter at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like us on Facebook, like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. But for now, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.